Okay, this is exciting. We're making some discoveries about muscle memory. Here's your look at the new Mondo Rick and Morty collectible figure set, Series 2. We're back with Series 2 of our Rick and Morty collectible figure series. These new figures are huge and feature great neck, hand, and ankle articulation, as well as interchangeable heads and hands and exciting accessories for any adventurer. This Mondo exclusive edition also comes with Mr. Poopy Butthole, an additional distressed Meeseeks figure, and is limited to just 1,500 pieces. And yes, these heads and accessories are completely interchangeable with the Series 1 figures. Careful now, Morty's carrying himself a deadly sidearm. Before we get a closer look at the Rick and Morty collectible figure Series 2, I'd like to thank the folks over at Mondo, who took the time and did provide the sample, and also took the time and provided the limited sample release that comes with the distressed Meeseeks, as well as Mr. Poopy Butthole. Mr. Poopy Butthole is right now sitting this one out, so I'm going to bring him back in for the accessory end of this review. But in the meantime, though, let's grab the tape measure just to see how tall these figures stand. Big-armed Morty, taking the tape measure right to the very top of his head, stands about 8 inches in height, or the figure's going to be about 20 centimeters tall. As for the distressed Meeseeks, him and the regular Meeseeks are about the same size. Meeseeks, counting, of course, the hair, gives him a figure that's about 11.5 inches in height, or the figure's about 29 centimeters tall. In the case of the limited edition release, though, you get 2 brand new figures that weren't part of the standard release. You get yourself 1 extra Meeseeks. He's the one to the left, the one that looks a little more distressed. And you get, laying down on the job right now, Mr. Poopy Butthole. Mr. Poopy Butthole we'll actually talk a little bit about first. He is technically a standalone figure, but unfortunately, he doesn't stand at all. He does have technically peg holes on the inner sides of his feet, and yet the figure unfortunately doesn't come included with a display stand. None of these figures, in fact, come included with display stands. Morty stands okay, but you have to kind of twist his ankles out. We'll get more into that in a moment. But Mr. Poopy Butthole does have holes in the bottoms of his feet, but there doesn't come included with a display stand. I looked all around the tray inside the box, and sure enough, no display stands whatsoever. I'm going to see if I can find myself a clear stand in the meantime, something that would be small enough of a post that could fit on the underside of Mr. Poopy Butthole's shoes. I did get myself like a regular black display stand we have from another company here. It does technically have the correct sizing of peg, but unfortunately with, again, Mr. Poopy Butthole, saying that so often in this review, it doesn't go deep enough. The hole is actually quite shallow, and the hole doesn't go in. The peg doesn't go in all the way. So unfortunately with Mr. Poopy Butthole, there I go saying it again, he doesn't really stand very well. He's also very wide-stanced, which also causes some problems when it gets the figure to stand on his own. Does come included with his cane, but the cane is sort of more something you just kind of drape on his hand like that. It certainly doesn't add any little bit of stability to the figure. Again, I'm going to see if maybe I can find myself maybe a small kind of clear, maybe like one of the Funko stands that maybe came included with, for example, like the vinyl figures. If anybody remembers those vinyl figures, may have used a proper sized peg that I might be able to find for Mr. Poopy Butthole. In the meantime, though, getting a closer look at the figure itself, it doesn't really have much in the way of posability, but he certainly is a nicely detailed looking figure, and I can certainly see the sell of why you'd want to get the limited edition release, being the fact that you're not only getting this guy, whether he has some difficult time to stand or not, but you also get yourself the distressed Meeseeks figure. Again, you got the nice detailing done to the face here, big googly eyes, tiny little chiclet-sized teeth. Hopefully you guys can actually see, there we go, see that there. And again, you got some nice really coloring that they've added to the base of the neck. Kind of looks like an elongated, kind of looks like a banana, in fact. The articulation on this guy is a little on the more limited side. There isn't really any articulation to the head. It's basically molded to the rest of the body, but there's technically arm articulation. There is no waist articulation, but you can at least move the feet. The feet, I thought, if anything, because the stand doesn't really come included with the figure, I thought if I had the feet angled outward, sort of working the same way as Morty, that would be enough for Mr. Poopy Butthole to stand on his own. But because, again, the figure has such large of a head, such a small body, and the way they've spread out the stance of the legs, It's strange the fact that the figure does have peg holes on the undersides of his feet, and yet nowhere to be found. And display stand came included with the set. Gonna move him out of the way. Looking at the rest of the accessories that come included with the figure, I guess first of which we'll look at maybe the standalone accessories. Here we have the isotope. The isotope has been nicely painted. It sort of looks like a little bit like kryptonite. Lighter colors of the green, and then you've got the darker colors of green added in there as well. It's not hollow either. It's got some good weight to it. It feels like a good solid chunk of heavy plastic. Nice little detail piece that you can display along with the figures. Along with that, you also get yourself the Meeseeks box. Now, I have a full-size version of the Meeseeks box that's actually part of a Meeseeks game, I think also produced by Mondo. It's nice to get a little smaller representation, but like the isotope, the Meeseeks box actually has some good weight to it. So it doesn't feel hollow at all. It's got some really good paint going for it as well. All the sides nicely represented here with some outlining done in a lighter blue. You got some nice black added in there as well. Just an overall nice little accessory. As well, if you're going to be getting yourself Mr. Meeseeks, you'd like to think as well you could get yourself also a Meeseeks box. Put that to the side. The figure also comes included with the extrapolator. I have a tough time saying that. Extrapolator gun. The extrapolator gun, of course, is used in the episode to extract out what eventually becomes Morty's arm. You can see it's got some nice detailing done to it. Now, this technically can fit into Morty's hand, not necessarily this hand, but you can actually take this and fit it into his other hand. I think had I actually had the chance to pick up the Series 1 set, I would have actually used the extrapolator gun and have it actually displayed with not necessarily Morty, but I think I would actually have it displayed with Rick instead. But it does fit actually quite well into his hand itself. Now, if you don't have any plans to have the extrapolator gun displayed in Morty's hand, what you can also do as well is he comes included with this swapped out hand, which is essentially the same sort of arm, but a closed fist instead. Simply just go ahead and take that arm and remove it quite easily. It's just pegged into this sleeve. You can see there's the hole underneath. And then just plug it out with this arm. Not only does it give you a closed fist, but it also gives you a relaxed arm as well. Put the figure down here for 1 second. Now with Morty, I've noticed, you have to again find the sweet spot for him. He does technically again have peg holes in the undersides of his feet, but the good news at least, while he doesn't have a display stand to come included with him, you can use yourself just a regular display stand, as it uses the same size diameter peg. More than enough to keep Morty from falling over. And while he's certainly doing that as well, let's look at the other accessory he comes included with. Now, the figure also comes included with Armathy's pointed hand, or at least the thumbs up. Speaking of pointing hands, one thing I do wish that this set could have come included with, because Armathy, the name of the arm he now gives it, he has in the episode the point where he actually points at several people he's about to kill, primarily the man that kind of burnt down his village and whipped him as well when he was down. I wish they could have also included the pointing hand, but ultimately you get yourself a thumbs up hand that's obviously been quite soaked here with blood. And then you also get yourself like the duck hand, which is probably the best way to describe it. Sort of while he's talking to Armathy, the hand itself sort of makes these different gestures. I would have liked actually, there's really no way to pull this off just by the frame of Morty, that you can't really bring the arm far enough over so it looks like he's actually talking to Armathy. I guess you can kind of turn the hand just a little bit, but it's pretty close to his face. So unfortunately you wouldn't be able to do that. But just to show you what it looks like, we're going to go and pop off the duck hand and replace it with the thumbs up hand. For me at least, I think the likely way, I'm probably going to be displaying the figure, just looks good, especially the fact it's got blood all over his hands. So disturbing. Also, Morty does come included with an angry face, too. Now, as he certainly progresses through the gauntlet, killing people in the gladiator-style arena, he sort of starts getting a little angry, and this is certainly a great face to go along with the figure. You can see some now visible teeth, big large eyes, which again, the tiny little pupils painted inside, and the eyebrows painted along the top of that, to swap out the existing head, just to show you the difference between the two. So again, a very smiling, very oblivious to life Morty. But again, if you want the angrier looking expression Morty, simply just go ahead and take the figure, remove it from the ball joint. One thing I really like about Mondo pieces is that the joints, the ball joints, are so hard of plastic, so they're very easy to remove, like heads, arms, for example. Go ahead and just then pop the new head on, which I say was easy to remove, although it's a little harder now to get back in place. not really necessarily needing hot water, but just a little bit of time behind the camera to put a little bit more effort onto the ball joint, finally get the angry expression Morty in place. And again, you can see the difference between the two. For the fact that he does actually have Armathy here with him, I think I'm more leaning to the idea of actually displaying him with the angrier face instead. I think it just feels right. Again, the only thing I would have loved to see included with this set, short of the duck hand, short of the thumbs up hand, is an actual pointing hand. I think that would have been a nice touch as well. As for Morty himself, the figure is nicely detailed. It's very, again, heavy in plastic, and the plastic that they've used seems like a really good quality. Mondo, to their credit, whenever they do these 6-scale figures, like the plastic feels really good on them. Really strong, very strong plastic, very unlikely to be broken. But again, like the features on the face is fantastic. Coloring is really good on this one as well. I think they've picked the proper colors. I even like the coloring and the additional airbrushing that they've used for Armathy here. The coloring on the red is also nicely done. It's not actually even just painted on either. You can see there's a good thick layer of blood actually sitting on the surface of the skin. Nice touch. You even got that also on the thumb as well. It's those attentions to detail I really do like. Again, like the shirt is nicely painted. You got here all the yellow and some additional darker yellow added in there as well for a little bit of shadowing. Of course, Morty's jeans, his blue pants there as well, and lightly colored sneakers as well, with a little bit of socks added in there as well. Now again, there's articulation here on this figure. It's not necessarily, I would say, a ball joint. It seems more like a peg joint. Now, with this figure having a large arm like this, you would think right away that the figure would have some difficult time to stand. And to be fair, yes, he does. If, though, however, you widen the stance of his feet, so essentially I've just taken his shoes and turned him out like this, he stands fine. If you, though, bring the feet closer together, that's where you're going to have more of the problem of Morty wanting to fall backwards. But again, you got always the option of displaying him with a display stand. Even though he doesn't technically come included with one, you can use any one from another company, as the diameter of the peg hole is exactly the same. So we're going to move Angry Morty out of the way here with Armathy, and then on to then the two Meeseeks figures. The Meeseeks are pretty much identical to one another except for a different head sculpt. If you were to look at the bodies, for example, picking up the two, you can see like the bodies appear to be identical, other than the fact that you've got a couple of little more stains and stuff added to the distressed Meeseeks. Arms also look to be posed in the exact same way, and feet also seem to be identical to one another. These of the two figures, at least of the set that we get here, are the more lighter figures. There feels like not maybe as much heavier plastic being used for the Meeseeks. Maybe in fact, the bodies are probably hollow. The faces are very much different from one another too. I really like the look of this Meeseeks. Worried, panicking. You can see just a very much distressed look on his face. Again, he's got all these additional lines and splotches all over him that weren't on the original Meeseeks that we also get included. So with this set, the 1500 release or so that the limited set is distributed as, the one that you're getting here as a standard release basically gives you this Meeseeks. If you, though, source out the limited set, the set also then comes included with Mr. Poopy Butthole, and it comes included with this Meeseeks here. For the articulation on this guy, there's no articulation for the head. Simply, it's just a continuation of the head down to the rest of the body. So this is all one piece. But the arms at least rotate back and forth. With the gesture that they've actually given this one arm, and that carries over as well over to the distressed Meeseeks, with the gesture of the arm, it's always more suitable, I feel, to have just the arm continued down and just basically resting against his body. And yeah, you can bring it out, but it doesn't really look like he's doing much of anything. It looks like he's almost about to do a jig. This arm also does rotate back and forth. Very little, though. Just a little bit back and forth. And then his legs also do rotate in and out. Now, with Meeseeks, unlike Morty, he doesn't have peg holes on the undersides of his feet. So, when it comes to displaying Meeseeks, both of them at least, pluralizing Meeseeks, you do want to get them in, again, that proper stance. If you do have the feet, again, close together, if you twist them in like this, that's going to look a little more ridiculous. Meeseeks has a little more of a harder time to stand, so you will want to probably just bring those feet out a little bit to give him enough of a stable stance that the figure isn't going to fall over. One thing I also did notice, though, about the distressed Meeseeks is that his feet don't seem as leveled as the regular version. His feet, or this one specifically, seems like it's just not quite as flat as this one here, or it sits a little more on an angle. So when it comes to actually displaying it, the distressed obviously has to be the distressed version of Meeseeks, and also just his leg on this one side doesn't peg in completely, but he has a little more of a harder time, I find, to stand. Not to the extent, of course, of Mr. Poopy Butthole. Poor Mr. Poopy Butthole, unfortunately, again, just doesn't have a display stand, which, again, is kind of a bit surprising. I suppose I could rest it, providing I have enough support of Morty. I could kind of have it just resting against Morty, but that seems a little weird, a little out of place. and especially for how aggressive Armathy is on his side, I don't know if I was Mr. Poopy Butthole, if I would be standing all that much closer to Morty. With all the fun I've had looking at the Mondo Rick and Morty Collectible Figures Series 2, I really do kick myself that I never got the chance to pick up the Series 1. The Series 1 would have had just a standard Morty and just a standard Rick. But the neat thing about it, though, is that they have interchangeable parts. So if you have the parts here from Morty, sort of maybe taking Armathy off. I mean, why would you want to take that off and force that off the Boldo and to try to put that on the other Morty? You'd essentially be doing the exact same thing with figures, but you'd be able to swap out the heads. You would be able to swap out also the other arm. And again, all the accessories that come included with the Collectible Series Set 2 would also be interchangeable with that Series Set 1. Now, surprisingly, this set goes pretty good on their price. Price-wise, goes well on their site for $150. It's $150 for what you get here in the Series 2 set. Granted, this is now unfortunately sold out over on their website, but one thing you can always do with Mondo, which I really do like, is if something is sold out on their site, you can simply go down underneath the part that says sold out and select the notify me when restocked. So essentially when they get restocked the items, you essentially get your email saying that the items are now back in on their site, and then you can pick them up from there. The exclusive set, again, comes with the Distressed Meeseeks and comes with Mr. Poopy Butthole. For right now, I've got him resting against the more tamer side of Morty, on the more relaxed or the smaller, wimpier hand. I've got him on that side. He's going to be resting like that, likely on my shelf. It's kind of, again, surprising that this figure of Mr. Poopy Butthole didn't come included with a stand. A clear stand with a small enough peg that would actually fit inside the hole of his feet. He has the holes on the bottoms of his shoes, but he didn't seem to come included with the display stand, which I find that was a bit strange. Morty didn't come with one either, but at least the size, the diameter, it takes basically a regular action figure display stand. So if you have one around already, just simply use that one for Morty. I probably would recommend that, though, for the weight of Armathy on the one side of his body. Definitely would recommend using a display stand to prevent Morty from falling over. Once again, the exclusive was limited to only 1,500 pieces. The standard version, again, would be still sold out. But if you are interested to get the one that has the 2 Meeseeks instead of just the one, and Mr. Poopy Butthole, standing or not, again, that one is limited to 1,500 pieces only. What do you guys think of the set? And did you ever get the chance to pick up the Series 1 set that Mondo had produced and released not too long ago? Let me know down below in the comments section what you guys think of these. Once again, as well, I'd like to thank the folks over at Mondo that took the time and did provide the sample of the Rick and Morty exclusive deluxe figure set Series 2. If you guys certainly enjoyed this video, hit it with a like. If you're loving the content you guys are seeing and want to certainly stick around for more, then make sure you hit the subscribe button down below and move on over with your big arm to hit that bell notification. Just don't break the bell notification. I know how strong Armathy may be, but just be careful. Ringing it. Also, as well, popping up at the very end of this video will be a playlist of all the things as well I've looked for Mondo over the years, with many future Mondo reviews popping up in there as well. So, as guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.